Sounds like we are seeing our Orange Walk Rotarians.
Yeah, nice.
Can you hear us yet? Hi, Becky.
Hi, hello.
This is my club member, Paul McCandless, from our Livermore Rotary Club. And you were club president or are going to be, which are you at this point?
At this point, this Rotary year, I am the treasurer, actually.
Oh, okay, got it.
I was president, I think, around 3 or 4 years ago.
All righty. Well, thank you for doing that work. Ramon had said that he would be on in just a minute or a few minutes ago, but I just haven't seen him yet. So I'll let him know that you've gotten on.
I think he just got in from work.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a little early, isn't it? Because he says he's not available till after 7, but it's when you're running busy, or if, I don't know what traffic is like where he's coming from. Where is he physically working these days? Is it everywhere or anywhere, or does he go out the Yeo Creek Road out towards some of the program for Belize facilities, or does it just depend?
I think he does some work at home, and 1 or twice he goes to Belize City.
Mm-hmm.
Or if he needs to go to La Milpa, he goes there once or twice also. It depends on what he has to do.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
But it's not so much that there's a big traffic jam. It's just
No. Right now, no, not like before, because there's lots of buses are not traveling anymore to the city.
Yeah,
because before COVID, well, we had a lot of bus lines traveling from Corozal to Belize City, but now it's like we have a few of them, not much. So the highway is not that busy.
Well, that's good to know.
Mm-hmm. But the traffic is picking up, but it's not as before.
So how is the vaccination availability there in Belize now? I see the Belize news from one of the stations, and often they have an update on it. But from your perspective, how is vaccination going and the pandemic?
People have been coming out to vaccinate, and there's people also who don't believe in the vaccination.
Mm-hmm.
But, the government or the Ministry of Health is trying to advertise as much as possible to convince people to go and vaccinate. I am vaccinated, totally vaccinated. Yes.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
But the vaccine's been pretty available?
Yes.
No, that's
yes.
Terrific. That's good.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, we had the Pfizer one a couple of weeks ago, and the high school students have been started to get their vaccination already.
Wow, very good.
Yes.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for bumping up and down here. I have an adjustable desk, and if I'm not careful, I press the button and it goes up or down. I have to put on the lock button.
Hello. Good
evening.
Good evening.
Glad you could make it. I'm sorry it kind of jams you up a little bit right after work, but thank you very much for joining us. Did you see the message from Dennis that he would not be able to join us?
No.
Maybe he just sent it to me. He indicated he wasn't feeling well.
Join? Yes, I am. All right. Okay. Yes. Well, this is the direct link with the project on the ground. So if he can't make it, then I don't know who else will.
But he was able to send a couple. He sent me a WhatsApp message with 2 updates to the cost estimate, so I can include those as well when we get to there. I can let you know that. But I think from my perspective, I think we should just be. I shared a fair bit of information with you, but we should check from your perspective, because you had actually encouraged us getting together. So I want to make sure that we're responsive to what your questions are and your team's questions. Just in terms of introductions, you guys know me. I'm Pat Coyle. Paul McCandless is also from the Rotary Club of Livermore, and he's a part of our Area 4 Global Grant Committee. So and he's been involved in several of these global grants in preparation of the applications. And he this last season he just completed the District 5170 leadership training thing. So he's been exposed probably to more technical stuff on this than I have. But between all of us, we can certainly work our way through this. So we've got Ramon and Becky, and is this Julio? Julio, I'm not sure if I've met you before. If I have, I apologize for not remembering, but nice to have you this evening.
No, you haven't met me yet. I just joined Rotary about 2 weeks ago. Hi, good night.
Okay. Good. Well, you've joined a very good club. I know every time I've stopped in there since I started coming back to Belize, I'm always astounded at the kinds of things that are being done from the Rotary Club of Orange Walk. The phrase we use up here is you guys punch above your own weight. Kind of like a sports metaphor, I guess. So
Yeah. Just as an introduction to Paul, I'm the president of the Rotary Club of Orange Walk, and I've been a Rotarian for, I don't know, almost 18 years or 17 years, something like that.
Nice to
And
meet you, Ramon.
yes, I have worked with projects, but recently I have not worked with the global grant process. But we are willing to assist where possible. And so as a club, we have agreed that the club can be involved if some of us are willing to do that work. So I have asked some members, I've had it as an open invitation for some members, and we had 3 or 4 that expressed interest. And Becky was one of those. Becky is our treasurer. So whatever project involves in the Rotary Club would involve money. And so we need to have a proper accounting process for whatever funds come in the club's name. And we have to account for every single cent that flows through the club.
Right,
And we have 4, so there's no issue with that. Julio is our one of our newest members. We have 2 new brand members, or brand new members. Actually, he was inducted on August 28th, which is the 50th anniversary of the Rotary Club of Orange Walk. So he has a very historic date that he will remember his induction. So 50 years of Rotary Club in Orange Walk. So August Pine Ridge is near Orange Walk, and so it's along the way to one of the reserve that we help to manage. So I have a full-time job, Monday to Friday, and some days weekend, but mostly Monday to Friday. And so a lot of the field work would be expected to be done by somebody that can help in the community and so on. So we have to sit down with Dennis and see. It can't be a one-man team out in the project site, because we're selling the project as a community need. And if it's a community need, then I would say the community needs to. So.
Yeah, having community engagement is really important. The experience that I've had where I've had really good luck is in Nicaragua, and there we've got a really strong community-based organization, and we also have a very strong NGO that the NGO is really not particularly they don't particularly care what the intervention is. They just care that the community needs are identified and the community members are engaged and are willing to work. And then they go through what they're skilled community facilitators. That's their game. They're called Alcanza Nicaragua. I don't think we have that kind of an organization that's working in and around August Pine Ridge. I'm not aware of one. I don't know if you know of one, Ramon, because that kind of an NGO is very helpful when you're doing community needs assessments, but I don't know if we have one. Like
Well,
that.
in the village, they have to have this, the water board, they have to have their village council. And
Yes,
those are the beginning group that need to be involved. If they're not involved,
Right.
then we're barking up a very skinny tree.
yeah, exactly.
And trying to climb it. So the idea that why we need to talk is to look at what documents were available and then to see how, well, unfortunately, Dennis is not here, but the idea would have been to see how we can get to engage the community so that we can fill in not just by finding reports or so, but by actually doing a recent interview or focus group or
Right.
some kind of data collection that shows that this is the way to go.
Yes. And the community assessment form that Rotary offers for a place to summarize that's actually just a one-page summary kind of a document, but it points you
Yes.
to other ways to do that. But the key is a survey and community assessment describing how you did it, like you say, whether you did it with focus groups or interviews or whatever, and making sure that it's not just the one project you want to do, but that it really does look at all the needs in the community and then say why this is the need that was chosen. And so it's intended to give you a broader view. We have we've had some experience doing that both in Nicaragua, and then last season we did a global grant in our own communities here. It was because of COVID. The Rotary Foundation allowed us to not have our partner club outside the US provide a large fraction of the funding. Instead, we were able to work with our Guatemala Rotary Club of Lake Atitlan, and they were our partner club, but they didn't have to put anything in it. But we had the benefit, we had community needs assessments by the healthcare providers. So we had well-documented needs assessments that were very helpful for being able to complete that. Some years ago, when the Engineers Without Borders team from Cleveland State University did a new school building for the school in August Pine Ridge, there was a community improvement committee that was operating in August Pine Ridge at the time, and I don't know if they're still operating or not, but they together with the village council were able to do a comparable thing. That was not a Rotary Global Grant, it was just an Engineers Without Borders project, but they were able to put together a pretty clear picture fairly quickly of what the needs in the community were, and then to prioritize them so it was clear that what they really wanted was a classroom addition for the school, as opposed to needing help with municipal trash system, which is still a need there, and some traffic control measures and some other things that they were interested in, but they had a top priority. In this case, they've approached us because they've said that this $1,000 a month, US $1,000 a month power bill to pump the water for the community is a heavy burden on the community. The water board has to then pay that and collect the fees from the users of the system. So that's what motivated their interest in this. But your point is still just right. It's finding that right set of people on the ground, and who better than the village council and the water board and whatever other community organizations they have to be able to work that problem and write up a good community needs assessment for us. I mean, we can help them, but it's really, they're the ones who know the problem.
Yeah, so that's the idea, to get Dennis and to see who else is going to be directly involved so that we can have this team, and then ask them for certain field information guided by whoever knows about it. I know Julio is a community activist all the way, and he writes project proposals, and he knows about what can be in a project. But I know we're looking at the $1,000 US or $2,000 Belize bill that they have to pay for electricity. But if the project is sold, that this project is going to save the village from not paying this $1,000, rather paying maybe $500 or $300 or $2, then the village will say, well, then the water should be free, or I should pay half now. So we have to find a way of, if we were able to pay this money before, now we're not going to pay it, what are we going to do with this extra money, or this?
Right.
So, because
that's an
if
important point, and I think
we just say we're going to save money, like save it for what?
Right.
You know.
I mean, this
And so-
is intended, my thought on this is to make this an environmental protection project. Paul and I were talking about that a little bit. Oh, I see Julio has his hand up, so maybe we should let him weigh in here. So I didn't mean to talk
Sure.
over you, Julio.
He moved to the top. He was at the right, left, bottom there, the right. Sorry, the
But
right-
I was going actually to mention the same thing in terms of the environmental protection of side of this project. In addition to making sure that the community members still pay their fee, one of the other risks that we run is also that the community members may think, oh, it's free water, and they start misusing and abusing the water system, and then the wear and tear of the equipment, and also then the waste of water is something that needs to be thought of. And I think that an educational program along with the water system is going to be more look at the situation more comprehensively.
I think that's an excellent point. In fact, in the draft estimate, I was talking with Dennis, and I included, because I think we can size it and call it a pilot project, but he was interested in, and I impressed on him, the importance, and August Pine Ridge has only done a little bit of trying to pilot metering at the household level. But without metering, you have very much this risk that people say, oh, I don't, I'm not using too much water, or they forget to turn off the spigot, or they just don't take, there's a tendency to waste water. Whereas if you see what your water usage is, and in August Pine Ridge, it's still a flat rate for usage. If you actually need to pay based on metered usage, then that gets that piece of the puzzle of stewarding the water resource more top of mind. And I think that's an important consideration. And I think the other thing is that if you just frame this as it's just a cost saving thing, I think very much the risks that Ramon and then you are also mentioning comes into play. I think another way to think of it is trying to encourage people to steward the water supply, take the opportunity to use solar to displace, and you guys can correct me. I know Belize does have a big hydro project that was quite controversial some years ago, but my understanding is that a lot of the electricity that is used in Belize is coming from fossil fuels, some of it generated in Mexico. And so that's where I think you could make the case that the environmental protection, both of offsetting the mitigation and mitigating use of fossil fuels to generate electricity, is a real benefit. but it shouldn't just be in a vacuum. That's a real benefit. People ought to see it and understand it, and particularly in Belize, where you have such a premium on the environment, because it's such an important cultural and economic asset to the country to have the Rio Bravo Conservation District, the reserves in the Maritimes. Also, I think Belize has done a pretty good job of stewarding those natural resources. And so being able to frame this really as more of an environmental protection project is worth doing. And I think your cautions and risks are very important.
Yes, I was going to ask, I know that Rotary certainly allows more leeway in certain aspects of strict scientific data in some cases, but I'm wondering, and maybe Paul or so can guide us here. If we're saying that I agree that environmentally using solar is a good thing. However, directly at the project site, there is no burning of fossil fuel. There is no use of the diesel at that point. And so how would we quantify or say that we are mitigating or reducing this amount of carbon emissions?
I think we could manage that. One idea that strikes me, and I wondered about it, is we will need to get their kilowatt hours usage, their metered usage, and then with a little bit of homework, we can find out what Belize Electric, what it takes for them to generate that power. And it, just in fairness, it might not all be from fossil fuels, but the portion that is non-hydro is going to be quantifiable, and so, or at least estimated. I'm not saying it would be 100% accurate, but if we could translate that into if all of that electricity was being generated by plants in Mexico burning whatever petroleum derived fossil fuel they're using there. I don't know whether they're using gas plants or petroleum plants or what they're using to generate that power from. We could get at that, and then you can say, it's an emission. It's a global emission. It's not a
It's not it can't be a site specific emission,
right? Yeah, we don't have to worry.
Because we did do a project in San Carlos where we installed 25 individual solar systems, but there the village was using a small generator to power electricity for the school, for the library. Village. And so we were able to quantify how much gasoline was being used daily, and that could have been converted to how much what emissions would have been prevented with the project. So that's why I'm asking this one, how can we justify carbon mitigation, carbon reduction?
Yeah, so I think we can do it from a calculational basis, informed by getting a better handle than I currently have on the, let me stop talking and let Paul talk.
Yeah, so I just real quick did a Google search and ended up here on a website looking at the global energy.
It's breaking up.
Can you hear me? At the global
Maybe
energy
just try
mix.
again, Paul.
What's that?
I was just going to ask you to try again, because they had some breakout. They reported some breakout of the audio.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that a little better?
Yes.
Okay. So I was just saying that I went to a website here with that has the energy breakdown that you can get from different countries, and it's showing it for Belize, and unfortunately for this project, it looks like Belize gets almost 95% of their energy from hydro. And the fossil fuel contribution is a little less than 5%.
Maybe it depends on the season, because maybe Julio can correct me, but
yeah, well, that needs to get looked at, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the
sorry.
last 5 years of data ending in 2017.
Because I know we buy energy from CFE, and I know that they still have a big bill there, but according to the news, but
Okay.
so I don't. Julio, would you agree it's 95% hydro?
No.
That
I am copying a link to the
I see
Zoom
it there.
meeting. Sorry, it's not. That link's coming from my computer, so you won't be able to open it.
Oh,
But
I
this
see.
is the Government of Belize Energy Unit, and it's a
Okay.
report for 2019. I think it's the latest one that's online, and so that describes the energy production and consumption in Belize.
Okay, yeah.
That'll
I
be a
think I have
very
it.
helpful resource. Yeah.
I think that there is a way, because I see it within my own billing system for my online billing, whereby I can compare energy consumption within my street or my neighborhood. So I'm pretty sure that BEL can break down for us what's the energy consumption for the village of August Pine Ridge.
Yeah, it should be
They
able
more
to.
than likely would have that broken down by village.
Because when I asked Dennis about it in the initial conversation was with Dennis and some other members. It was a it was a WhatsApp call with Dennis and my friend in August Pine Ridge, Natalia Solis, had facilitated it. There were other members of the water board there, but when I asked, it didn't seem like they had their printouts of or they didn't have a physical copy of their bill at hand, so you could look at the kilowatt hours used. Instead, they were just seeing the financial charges. But surely that's available. I mean, that has to be available. It's just the account that serves them, and we could find out what that is in more detail. But thank you very much for providing this link. That will help us get at some of the specifics there.
Yeah, that'll help a lot. Thank you.
I've known that we have had issues when a village is unmetered and then going to metered. There is strong resistance to putting in a meter, because it's always suspect that my bill will definitely go up. Maybe not everyone, but those people who know that they use a lot of water. So we have to counteract need for a meter, one with education, as Julio is saying, but also whatever we have to find out what issues or what improvements the water system has foregone or has not been able to do, and what improvements they will be able to do based on saving 500 US or 300 US or whatever.
Sure.
Bearing in mind that a solar system is not totally free. We operate about five or 1, 2, 3, about 6 or 7 solar systems up on the reserve. And our main issue is when it's time to replace those batteries, it's a big chunk of change. And so solar system is not free in terms of never needing maintenance. And of course, inverters and chargers can get damaged as well. So there has to be some savings or the use of the solar system during the day to pump the water and things like that to reduce wear and tear.
Yeah, Ramon, I was actually going to propose something similar. No, you have seen the gridlock systems that do not require battery systems. So you fill up the tanks during the day, so that at night you have, when there's sun, and at night you don't. You consume, and then in the morning it will start replenish. But we would have to see what would be the rate of refilling for something like that. In my experience, I think the battery banks are one of the most expensive components of the solar systems, and the ones that would require the highest maintenance. And probably exploring something with only grid tie or with limited batteries, just to be able to pump in case of an emergency. But
And this system, which Dennis has provided the estimate for, I could share that, but it's only a few lines. It's actually those lines were described in the PowerPoint slides that you guys were looking at that evening. The spreadsheet is just, now we have an additional cost for a security fence around it, but it included no batteries. It was basically
Okay.
trying to size the array big enough that you can
Okay.
pump throughout the day. Then if you need additional pumping, if
And you
it's
switch
at
to the
nighttime,
regular grid.
yeah, you would just be drawing from the grid then for that.
Okay.
So,
Because the other system is for power, because you would not be using the solar system every day, 12 hours a day or 8 hours a day during sunlight. I'm thinking of the other system now that if you get authorization from BEL or government, PUC, whoever, that you can be supplying power into the grid and you are just generating power, it goes into the grid and you use as you need, and then your bill is offset.
so actually Belize is allowing with permission net metering. then.
Yes.
Yes, that is a big
Yes.
improvement. In Nicaragua, it's still a no-no. So we have to be either or. You're either on solar or you're on, you can switch and have transfer switches, smart, but it's not like just the net metering where it just like on my home here that we have in California. And I don't know if you have solar on yours, Paul, but our utility just has got a meter that, it can run backwards. Yeah.
I'm familiar with how it works, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a system that might be possible given that it's a village, it's a community project, and then that would obviously not require batteries because the rest of the country is using your power, and then you just take some when you need it.
Yeah.
Maybe Julio, what do you think about that one?
I think that is great because it ends up being a win-win for everyone. The system is able to generate some income. At least you wouldn't have to pay for any electricity that you use, right? And the system is there already, so might as well make the most use out of it.
And then with that, we could definitely claim the carbon benefits and so on in that system because it's going into the same system that is causing the emission.
And it'll be interesting to see what, I encouraged Dennis and the person that he's working with in August Pine Ridge, who I think is working with a Mennonite man from Shipyard who has done a number of these systems, but I encouraged them to look at how much solar they needed to really cover as much of the water pumping load so they didn't underestimate the size of the system because that water system, my recollection, my place is right there at the edge of the storage tank. That's where my property is, and so I'm familiar with when they run out of water. I've been there a few mornings where there's no water in the morning, so it's easy. They have to currently they just have a person who goes out from the water board and starts the pumping, and then they pump. I think they pump almost all day to meet the water demand loads, and then try and leave it with a full tank by the end of the day. And then, but they don't pump all night. But they could have a more sophisticated control strategy than they currently have. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think, there's a lot of nuances to this. The key things that I would suggest to be sensitive to people's time tonight are make sure any other questions or issues that we can identify from your end, and also Paul from you, that we can have ready for Dennis. The main things for me are for him to make sure that we have a good cost estimate for him. And as I mentioned, he did provide some additional changes to me. One, the key thing he provided was a cost element of about 12,000 and change Belize dollars for the security fencing, which is not unlike the security fencing that's already around their little well pumping support building. It's a small concrete wall, a short little wall that has steel posts and then a chain link fence with the sort of coiled wire at the top. You've seen it many places. It's that kind of a fence. And then he actually revised the price down a little bit for the inverter. Although he is, in the spirit of, you're talking about maintenance and operation, he's recommending, his vendor is recommending that they get a second inverter to have as a backup, or as in case for my kind of system here where I don't have batteries, that's one of the first things that will be need to be maintained or replaced is the inverter. So I would think that making sure the cost estimate is sound, making sure that we understand how we can get them to perform a community needs assessment is important, and then to be able to report out to that. Also the messaging, like you say, so that you don't just message this as to the community, oh, we're going to save you a bunch of money, and then you can either pay less to the water board or you can spend it on whatever else you want, but instead say this really will allow the water board to meet needs that they may have deferred, or it may mean that they will be able to expand service to community members who have not been able to be hooked up because, whatever it is. But to really try and frame the messaging of this around environmental stewardship is, I think, an important thing, not just cost savings. But those are my takes on where we are here. What else would you guys like to cover? What other kinds of questions and so forth should we go over tonight? I think I'm really pleased to see that you've got a team of Becky who, if we're successful, she'll get to administer the money. And then we'll have to, as you say, count, there'll have to be a receipt for every cent that's spent. And then I like that Julio has experience, as you say, with, community organization, community activism, and project experience. But what else have you guys got? What else is on your mind in terms of things that we ought to take note of, that we maybe want to check with Dennis for actions or next steps?
Yes, as I mentioned, it would have been, maybe we do need to have Dennis at another meeting soon.
Yes.
Depending how much priority he puts to this one, because I know we need to see, in my case, and I guess in other Rotarians' view, we can't just get the word from one supplier. We have to get a couple versions of this system, and to be able to compare, and for 2 different or 3 different experts to say, yes, this is what is needed, because we shouldn't.
That's a good point.
I can't just say, I don't know who is dealing with at the moment, but there are different persons that deal with this thing, and send it out to a bidding process or something, and this is what we need to have. We need to have 3,000 kilowatt hours per day, or whatever their kilowatt bill shows. We say, all right, Mr. Pro Solar or Mr. Dick or Mr. Who,
Yep.
design a system to this and put a bid. How much do you want? And of course, as was recommended, there needs to be a redundancy. For example, at La Milpa or at Hillbank, we have a solar system with about at La Milpa we have about I don't know 60 panels, but because it's a large system, you cannot have it only on one inverter. It has to be split up so that you're not forcing one inverter. And so by default, depending on the size of the system, it might need 2 inverters to ensure that one doesn't get overheated, abused, and so on. No? So charge controllers are there's a dual set. The system is split, and then there's a less risk of being without the system. Because once if the whole system goes in, it will be in a lot of trouble. So
Yeah,
they cannot
yeah.
switch back to electricity, but to the normal grid, because you just switch over. But
The systems, Paul, just for your information, and I've stayed at Las Milpas, but the facilities that Ramon is describing are programmed for Belize facilities. The La Milpa has a residential kind of a setting for people to visit and so forth, but it's part of program for Belize's operation of the Rio Bravo Conservation District, which is, you can tell me, Ramon, how big it is, but it's thousands of acres of previously logged forestry land that the old Belize Estates mahogany logging operation ran, and now Program for Belize stewards that, part of it in pure reserve and part of it in sustainable forestry operations. But you have no grid tie to any of your facilities.
oh, so if we can't, we have no power. We have no power. So
yeah, right.
we can't just switch. But we do have a generator.
Yes,
And that is our backup.
right.
And so Julio is a Marine Protected Areas Manager himself, and so I'm sure he is aware of the solar systems out at the Keys, and he probably has contacts on who builds their systems. So that's what I'm saying. We can't just accept one setup.
Right. No, I think that's
Yes,
prudent. That
and-
you need to have the due diligence. Yeah.
Ramon, I think we need to develop in terms of reference for this water system. What's the term to use for this? But one, we need to size the system properly, and with that, the needs assessment needs to be completed, because what is important to understand is what's the size of the community or that actually needs water, in not only the ones that are currently connected, but what's going to be the new additions that they'll want to put onto the system within the next 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, that's
At
a good
least,
point.
so
What
to
about
ensure-
population growth? Yeah, yeah.
Exactly, and see how many people are waiting to actually be connected, whether they're downstream, upstream. All of these things will affect the need for water in the community. And again, I'm keen on the needs assessment, because that's really going to pinpoint what are the nuances in the community in terms of water, and if this is the right direction to take with the water. No, as Ramon mentioned, one of the biggest issues in Belize is going metering, because people are accustomed to, look, we're going to waste water whenever we have it, and when we don't have, well, we'll just do without it and complain. And so for me, it is sizing the system properly, and ensuring that we get the proper bids, and doing the education and outreach to ensure that water conservation is in the minds of the people as they're saving. No?
Those are really such important points. Who could argue with anything that you guys just said? Nobody. I mean, it's just right. These are irrefutable points.
So Becky, any words of Miss Becky? Open your eye, girl. Did you hear me?
No, I couldn't hear you. Motorcycle just passed.
Good thing then. You
I
never
didn't
hear
hear
what I
anything,
say.
Ramon, sorry.
No, that's good then.
Oh, shucks. I live
No,
by
I
the
asked
highway and then there's traffic right now.
any comment,
Uh-huh.
any idea, anything about this project? So
Well, I've seen my husband dealing with solar panels and with his inverters and everything. No, and we have a place by Honeycamp Lagoon, and I know it's pretty expensive. And then whenever there's problems with the batteries and everything, it's kind of expensive. That's all the experience I have with solar panels. But I'm just here also for a moral support for my club, for Ramon, if we do get this project going on. That's my little 5 cents here. But
what we'd
I'm
like,
just willing to work with
what we'd like to
Go ahead,
ask
Ron.
if Julio can and Becky can text in their information in the chat so that Pat can add them to the group.
Sure, I have a WhatsApp group that I started. So far, it's just Dennis and Ramon and myself, but we can add others on. That's a handy way to avoid long distance charges and so forth for us to communicate. We can add Paul and Jeff Youngsma. Paul has agreed to be on our global grant committee. And have you settled on who your team will be? Is it going to be Julio and Becky and yourself, or are you going to delegate someone else, Ramon, to be on your committee?
Well, as president of the club, I need to sign off on the documents that
Absolutely. Yeah, you'll be kept in the loop anyway.
I'm by default in the group. And then Julio said he would be willing to assist once we inducted him as a member. So now he's a member.
Good.
And then Becky had raised her hand in one of our meetings. So we would want them to agree if they are officially in the committee. Julio? Becky? All right, thumbs up from Julio.
That's good.
We have, just for you to know, we have other major projects that we work with. For example, at the moment, I'm working with the LEAP mission. This is a medical mission that comes to Belize. We are working on a proposal, on a plan to build a new pediatric ward at the Northern Regional Hospital. So again, I'm involved with that and trying to get that project off the ground. Yeah, additionally, every year we have a mission or two of doctors that come, and it requires quite a bit of logistical preparation prior to the group coming. And then again, I'm leading those missions. We have more help with Julio on board and the other Rotarian who's on board. But knowing what the process is, dictates who does certain things, no?
Sure. Well, that's such important and good work. Yes.
Yes. So yeah, so we'll be looking at the paperwork as it comes along and making our recommendations here and there. And maybe next week we can call another meeting and ask Dennis when he is going to be free so that we can look at the documents, because the community assessment is, as you said, the 2-pager is a guide. And behind that, you will have to have a lot of annexes, a lot of attachments to justify what you fill in the 2 or 3 lines.
Yeah, it's a great point. And what I should say, Dennis didn't just say he was unavailable. He said he was not feeling well.
Okay.
And
well, hopefully it's not COVID, because COVID is still going about a lot these days.
As he put it, and I just shared, he said, Mr. Pat, unfortunately, I will not be able to join the meeting. I'm not feeling well enough to speak. I'm having some symptoms of COVID. Nonetheless, I'm working on the details of the information. Sorry for the inconvenience. And then he did get back with me in the afternoon and gave me updated information, pricing information on the inverter and the estimate for the fence. So
well, maybe we should just wait for him to recover if it's really COVID, because if it's that, then he can't be going about dealing with people. So
I can share with him I'll take this, not that everybody, you guys have seen way too much video and way too much Zoom, but we do have this recording will be available. And so we'll be able to look at what we said to each other. And
yes, and he can look at it while he's recovering, and then
wish him well. And
by listening to it, he will know we wish him a speedy recovery, but also
Exactly.
be able to hear the concerns that were brought up, even if we were not writing it down. We don't have an
Right.
official, I don't know if Pat was writing down or so on, but
No, I
just-
took a few notes, but the other thing that I have running here is an app that it's the one that if you pay a premium for the Zoom premium account, you can get Otter.ai is their transcription service, but I use a cheaper version of Otter. So it will give me a not so great transcript of this afterwards, but it won't do it in real time. So we'll get the recap out to people. I just want to thank you guys so much for raising. Becky, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say you guys. I do that all the time, and what I really mean men and women, but I don't mean to give offense. So I'm sorry if
It's
I did.
okay. I'm used to it because I'm the only lady Rotarian in the group, so I'm already used to that.
Yeah, in reality, our club has now 14 members, and out of those, only about what, 7% are females. How much is that? That's one female.
Well, all right, then. Is there
So-
anything else we want to cover here before we sign off for tonight? Otherwise, I'll get the recap out. I don't have Julio and Becky. I don't have your emails. I may have Becky. I may have your email on one of the things, but I can share that with Ramon by email as well as.
Julio just typed
I see it.
his phone
there's
number
Julio's.
and his
And
email.
I just now see the email, so I'll copy that, and I've
It
got
says
that now too.
capital J or small j? Lower.
It doesn't matter, Ramon.
Okay.
Not on email.
All right.
All righty.
And then Becky has her phone number.
I see her. I've got the
To the
WhatsApp
WhatsApp.
numbers there for the WhatsApp
Yeah.
group. and-
Ramon,
Hi. Yes.
Ramon, one thing that helps me to keep on track is to develop a timeline for activities in the project development. No, if we can work on something like this when we meet with Dennis in terms of trying to stick to timelines and different objectives to meet in the development of the project would be great. So it keeps us at tasks, and we tried as much as possible to keep to that timeline. No.
Great
Maybe,
idea.
as was mentioned by Pat, that Paul is an expert in the global grant process, so maybe he can guide us on what we need to do first, second, third to be able to fill in the meat in this of this skeleton project. And
Yeah,
then
we can.
what can be done by desktop research or what needs to be done out on the ground in the field, no? And I said Julio has contacts with some maybe solar suppliers. I do as well. Maybe it's the same one. And then we know the Mennonites have their supplies, so we can compare and see what's
That would be
available
great.
there.
That would be great to get those things rolling, because I think that Dennis has probably been preoccupied with the one person that he's been in touch with. And that's one thing if you're just doing it informally, like you want to do it in the back of your yard, but or for your house, it's one thing if you just want to work with your trusted builder. But if you're like in this situation, the due diligence would really dictate getting multiple views of this and making sure that it's factored into it. We'll all feel more comfortable about that, even if it takes.
And
us a
it might
bit
just
longer.
as well be the same person he's thinking of.
Yeah. Yeah,
We
that
don't-
may be the preferred
Yeah.
vendor after all.
Mhm.
All right, that sounds good. So a timeline. And these other things we've covered. All right, I don't have anything else. other
Paul
than-
has his hand up.
Yes, Paul.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I think that Ramona and Julio have alluded to it. But the concept of a requirements document for what they really need, I think is very important. To kind of get going, that would include how much power they're currently using. Whether they pump during the day or day and night, or what the plan is. And
That's a
how
great
many,
idea.
again, how many people or hookups there are to it, and how many they want to have in the future and things like that. So I think that's one of the keys to getting that before you can even get the bids or the estimates from various contractors.
Yeah, I think what we have now is a what I would say it's a preliminary stab at it based on them saying, look, we pump about this much every day. And the pump is a 7.5 horsepower Franklin. And so the person that they spoke with said, well, for that, then we would need, and they ran through that. But it begs the question that the very good one about, I mean, as I recall, August Pine Ridge is the second largest village after Guinea Grass in the Orange Walk district. And I don't know what its trajectory for growth is, but it got to be the second largest village in the district because it had growth, and I don't know what is a reasonable assumption for that, and how much it's changing over time. So that's a very good thing to make sure that we don't sell this short in the beginning and include that in the requirements, just as you say, Paul. So and as Julio suggested, excellent points. The one other thing I was going to say, and I don't think I would waive this off, I would still proceed, is I would, and we can have as many of us join them on the 13th as we want, but the San Juan Batista president of their Rotary Club, Annette Kane, grew up in Belize until she was about 15. Her dad was worked on putting in the port over by the Western Highway side of Belize City. And he was apparently involved in Rotary pretty extensively back in the day. And she's invited us to present to their District 5170 Area 6 World Community Service Committee, because they do fund projects. They do provide DDF allocations to projects that they find worthy. So I will plan to continue on course to brief them, knowing that we don't have a full deck here yet. We are in the preliminary stages of this, but we can certainly describe to them where we are with this and that we would really like their support. Because at this point, the support that we have is $1,000 of DDF from our club's allocation. And I know that my wife and I, we are in a rare position in our district in that we can actually use cash to buy DDF for $1.25. And then when you put it in a global grant and it gets matched now with the matching at 80%, it gets a 1.44 multiplier on your cash. But we don't have, I'd like to see how much of this we can raise before we have to get into our own pockets. But I'm just letting you know, I would be interested in, we're interested in supporting it to the degree we can. There may be some other Rotarians, individual Rotarians, one of whom has visited Belize and is was quite impressed, that might be willing to donate. I know you mentioned, Ramon, that there was an opportunity to approach your district leadership about requesting funding. And I'm not sure what stage you would do that at, but that's the other thing. We'll need to get the technical scope of this in hand, the requirement scope, the rest of it, and then we'll have to line up the funding. So I think all of those need to be pursued in parallel.
We probably have to have like the project almost cooked, so that then they know this is what the budget is, and so as our district, we can give you 500 or 1,000 or whatever. Our club doesn't have a lot of money, but maybe we can put 500 or something. We're not promising what we can.
No, I understand completely
at this point, but once we see that that's going to make it happen, then maybe we can push it. No?
Yeah, the other thing that might be worth considering, and they were slow to come on for that August Pine Ridge School, Engineers Without Borders, but the Belize Natural Energy Trust was willing, finally, when they saw that it was going to be a going concern, then they provided significant support. I don't know how much or what their fortunes are looking like these days in Belize, but in the past they have run, they've served as a philanthropic organization, and this, you could argue, might be something they would like to see if it's really, mitigating petroleum offsets.
Yes, they still exist. They are still supporting projects, and there is currently out a call for proposals, and so we know that the Rotary Club had a proposal sent to them. I don't know if they're following it up, but yes, once it's once we have a good complete or almost complete proposal, we can then share it with whoever we think might be able
Got
to
it.
help. Yeah.
Do you, is it, would you want me to help with preparing that application to Belize Natural Energy, or is that something that's easy to do there when we're a little further
Well,
on?
they normally just want a proposal, and this is how much we need from you, and or this is how much more we need, and do you want to? So because we have a Rotarian who is a part of the board of the Belize Energy Trust, and so we can
access them at the appropriate time.
Yeah, but I don't think they have like a formal
A cycle that you dates where you have to hit these dates to get your submittal in per se.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Anything else we want to cover? This has been
Julio
very
has
helpful
something
me.
to say.
Yeah, I think the most important thing in terms of being able to start knocking doors and asking for additional support where needed is to basically have the proposal with the budgets drafted. There is the rural development ministry that also assists in water programs. The idea is once we have the full project, we could then go to them and see what we can leverage from them. Whether it's even accessing duty-free importation of certain items required for the solar system can be accessed through that ministry. But I think my biggest recommendation is let's start looking at the proposal. Let's develop the budgets. Let's develop what is it that it's going to solve for the community, and then we can start knocking the doors of
Got it.
whether it's social investment fund also provides funding for these types of things. And again, we do have friends that sit on several of the boards that can assist at some time, but it's basically knowing
Right.
how much we need. No?
Yeah, that sounds great. All right, you guys, that sounds terrific. If there's nothing else, I
Okay.
suggest we call it a wrap and wish Dennis well for
Yes.
getting.
Yes.
I hope he's all right.
Okay, well, thank you all, Julio, Becky, Paul, and Pat. And we'll see. I guess it's the 13th for those of us who are able to join Pat on the background there and hear him try to sell this project.
And Annette said that she would welcome, our host club visitors from Belize. She would actually get a kick, I'm sure, out of you guys joining that if you could. I think we'll probably have, no more than 15 minutes. So I think we
Sure.
would. And what I would suggest is you can get a sense from, maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think the slides that I shared with them and shared with you, which showed basically the outline of the need, the pictures of where the well is, the picture where the water storage pump is, and so forth, give an idea of where you're trying to put this solar system. I think what we have now is we need to flesh out that needs assessment. We need to get some more points of view
Budget.
on what the budget and costs from other vendors are, and then put the story together, along with I think really trying to frame this with the education and outreach, that this, if we're successful, this isn't just going to be free money to be, that you can use to buy beer. This is really an important way to, reduce the overall costs of supplying water to this community, with the eye that it should be in the spirit of conservation and stewardship of natural resources. So,
Okay.
all right, catch y'all later. Thanks again. Good night,
Good
y'all.
night.
All right, guys.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night. Good night.
All
Nice
right.
meeting everybody.